Master Swordsman, Fire Apparition. Kuwabara, brute strength and tremendous honor. Kurama, 300 years old, master tactician. And Yusuke Urameshi, spirit detective. In an epic battle against an unseen world.
Well, what can I say about Yu Hakusho that hasn't already been said? It's an outstanding manga and anime series that has been well known for years. Even now, it's still fondly remembered and loved by many. I personally never grew up with the show when I was younger, but seeing it around constantly made me feel like it was a part of me. It wasn't until a few years ago where I took it upon myself to undertake the journey. And to put it simply, it was a hell of a ride. However, recently I had a big urge to go back and rewatch it for some reason. And then I thought, hey, why don't we give the whole show a look? So this series is mostly going to be me covering my thoughts on the show as a whole. So for now, we're going to be looking at the Spirit Detective Saga in this video, which spans from the beginning of the show to the end of the Yukino rescue mission. So without further ado, let's get into it. Yu Hakusho is a manga series that began all the way back on December 3rd, 1990. Fun fact, the author Yoshihiro Togashi is also the creator of Hunter x Hunter. Yu Hakusho had a run of 19 volumes released in total. Its anime counterpart began airing on October 10th, 1992, which lasted up to 112 episodes. The series also spawned a number of video games, which had decently mixed reviews, but are still remembered fondly by most. Togashi originally wanted to create an occult manga, but incorporated the fighting in the series to keep up with the competition and be able to write something enjoyable as well. The manga has gone to sell 50 million copies in just Japan alone. The series was received very well in North America, as the anime adaptation was picked up to be dubbed by Funimation. It went on from there to be aired on Toonami, where most of you probably saw it. But now that the history is all said and done, let's move on to the actual content. Our protagonist is 14-year-old rebellious delinquent Yusuke Urameshi. What story lies ahead for this hot-headed youth? Ghost hunting? Some badass mystical powers? Maybe... Oh. Well, shit. So yes, right at the start, Yusuke is already dead. But seeing what led up to this is where we really find out who Yusuke is. He constantly skips school, has a mother who stays at home and gets drunk, and gets into fights constantly to boot. All of this develops his frustration even further to become the rebellious soul he is. Even at a young age and through his tough exterior, however, we begin to see glimpses of his true nature. His childhood friend Keiko even reassures her friends that even though he has this intimidating aura, he really is just a big old softie for the things he cares about. Eventually, Yusuke comes across a boy that is playing with a ball in the street. He scolds him pretty harshly, but then lightens up to show that soft side of him by cheering the boy up with some funny faces. However, the boy doesn't listen, and like the little shit he is, he goes right back to playing in the street. When an oncoming car approaches, Yusuke spots this and promptly jumps in front of the car and pushes the boy out of the way. This results in his death that we mentioned earlier. However, he doesn't head straight to the afterlife. Instead, he meets Botan, who tells him that he has a chance to come back if he falls when she says. Yusuke goes through a few days of overlooking everyone as a ghost. We get to see the real sides of the people in his life, such as his mother, his punching bag Kuwabara, and Keiko, who have all become incredibly torn up after his death. During this time as a spirit, we get to see their lives and how they begin to find out he has a chance to come back. Even Kuwabara, who we only knew as a previous punching bag to Yusuke, gets a short little character arc. He sticks up for his friends after getting in trouble with the school, which results in the corrupted teachers making him take ruthless beatings, knowing that fighting back will result in his friend losing his only source of income for his family. However, he keeps it together for the whole week deadline he's given, and even with an extra condition added on, he stays true to his word. Eventually, Yusuke learns that the only way to come back now is to be given life energy through one of his loved ones. Through a kiss, to be specific. It's a race against time to find someone to bring him back before the clock strikes midnight. If not, it would take him over 50 years to have another shot. Eventually, Keiko gets to Yusuke in the nick of time and gives him the kiss of life. I want to take a small pause here to talk about how much I related to Yusuke when I was around his age. As someone who had a bit of the same troubles as Yusuke, I realized that on my rewatch that I resonated with a lot of the elements that made him who he really is. A rougher exterior with unfair authority, but someone who would fight tooth and nail to protect those that they held close to them. And on top of that, I tried to be someone that helped those in trouble to the best of my ability, even sometimes putting their needs above my own. And most of those good elements stayed with me while the teenage angst faded away. But I think a lot of people can really see themselves in Yusuke, and I believe that that makes him much more of a real and lovable character, even in such a short time of knowing him. You know, even though life isn't a fairy tale, seeing characters that give examples shows that there's still compassion out there, even in the roughest people. And there are those that will stick their neck out for you and stay true to their word. Even a few episodes in, Yusuke and Kuwabara show very strong traits of loyalty and compassion in their own way, which doesn't really feel forced into the story, which, like I said earlier, makes them feel that much more lovable and realistic, even though Yusuke is dead, but we'll get to that again in a moment. Right when Yusuke is brought back to life, things don't seem exactly normal, and after a whole brawl alongside Kuwabara, Urameshi is given the task by Koenma to become a spirit detective. After learning to harness his spirit energy, he learns his first technique, the spirit gun, which only after using it does Koenma tell him he can only do it once a day. Real fucking useful. Either way, this leads Yusuke to his first mission as a spirit detective, and here we are introduced to some very familiar faces. You guys all know Hiei, Kurama, and Goki too. His first encounter is with Goki, who beats his ass. On the next encounter though, he uses this new object called the concentration ring, which makes his spirit gun stronger. He then blasts the shit out of Goki and wins. Oh, and by the way, that ring is never used again. After that, the story enters Kurama. Kurama has inhabited the body of a human after being chased off from the demon world, and has been brought up as a human for the past 15 years. Kurama wishes to save his human mother's life, but doesn't know why. However, he feels that he is at fault for her disease. He has to make use of an object called the Forlorn Hope to save her life. However, it requires a life sacrifice, and Kurama plans to selflessly sacrifice himself to make this work. However, Yusuke stops him, knowing exactly how the mourning was for his own mother when he had passed. Thankfully, the wish worked thanks to the immense desire in Kurama's wish. Also, small thing that my friend Ronald brought up, if Kurama took over the body of the child, where the fuck is the child's spirit? Now we enter the actual villain here, Hiei and his weird third eye. Kinda like Daisy, he straight up just holds Keiko hostage until Yusuke gives him the rest of the spiritual objects. After he gets them off Yusuke, he places a curse on Keiko, which forces Yusuke to open a can of whoop-ass on him so he can get the antidote that's in the sword. Kurama to the rescue and Spirit Gun bouncing off mirrors defeats Hiei. Oh, and also he's green, which he never does again, by the way. But with that, we are introduced to the main characters of the show, which all bring their own themes to the table. Kurama especially presents a new theme of compassion for those that he holds close. Even though he's a demon and doesn't understand why, he was ready to give his life for someone who raised him throughout his entire life. On top of that, he came to Yusuke's rescue during his fight with Hiei. Even though he had no connections with humans at first, he came to appreciate the struggles that people had gone through for him, even as far as giving his own life for these people. After this, we are introduced to one of the most important people in Yusuke's progression throughout the series, the incredibly wise and powerful Genkai. She holds a tournament to decide who she would teach and pass on her techniques. This also happens to align with one of Yusuke's tasks to find and defeat a demon called Rando, who is also trying to win the tournament in disguise. Kuwabara, incidentally, is also here, to try to find out why he has the ability to feel the paranormal. They pull off some pretty good fights here and there, including Kuwabara gaining his Spirit Sword ability, which has a fucking lightsaber sound effect the first time it shows up. In the end, Yusuke defeats Rando and ends up training under Genkai for the next 6 months. Almost immediately after Yusuke's return, however, he is sent again on another mission. This time he's joined by Kuwabara again as they go into Demon City. Upon their arrival, Hiei and Kurama join them as they're both on probation in the human world. With a group together, they head inside of Mei's castle to defeat the Saint Beasts, each of them defeating their own respective one. In the human world, Botan is left to hold off the assault of the Makai insects, which take over the humans by feeding on the evil in their hearts. One important thing to note in this whole arc is right when they enter the castle, the group is about to be crushed under the descending ceiling in one of the corridors, and the only one that can save them is Hiei because of his swiftness. Originally, he plans to leave them all behind to die, but ultimately decides to save them. He says that this is because he's unsure of the odds of victory with just him alone. However, I believe that this moment right here is the start of Hiei's whole character arc. Just as Kurama learned compassion towards humans, even though being a demon and having no connection to them, I believe that Hiei can do just the same given the right circumstance. In fact, later on, after Hiei defeats his respective Saint Beast, Kurama remarks to Yusuke that Hiei seems to be starting to like him. Looks like this little half-pint has a heart after all. With all the other Saint Beasts defeated, Yusuke encounters the final one, known as Suzaku, who had now made it his priority to use the possessed humans to attack Keiko. Also, am I the only one annoyed by Suzaku's bird thingy? Like, someone get the colonel in here and fry that shit. But the start doesn't look good for Yusuke. Suzaku uses his Shadow Clone Jutsu and beats down Yusuke pretty badly, all while mocking him harshly for using Keiko as his motivation to fight. So far, this has been Yusuke's toughest encounter, and a fight that he seemingly can't win. Being backed into a corner and shocked to all hell, while his friends are busy with their own encounters. On top of that, believing that Keiko is now dead after Suzaku shows him the events back on Earth. Suddenly, Genkai's voice echoes in his mind as he's reminded of his training with her. She reminds him to fight for what he cares about, and his mind suddenly flashes with everyone important in his life. He fights because they all need him, and because they all count on him, and when this reminder fresh in his head, he explodes with spirit energy. With this, Yusuke begins his counterattack and uses his new skill to take out all of Suzaku's clones. But at this point, Yusuke is all out of energy to continue, and Suzaku uses the remaining spirit energy from his clones to heal himself, and fucking does the Shadow Clone Jutsu again! As Suzaku gets ready to deal a final blow, he misses because Yusuke damaged his tentacle. Ew. But as Yusuke hears Keiko scream calling out for him, he gets a surge of energy, but this time, tapping into his life energy. He again uses his and the dumbass bird and the whistle controlling the Makai insects. And with that final attack, Suzaku is defeated for good, but at the price of using his own life source to defeat him. However, Kuwabara saves his life by giving him some of his own life energy. And with that, the Saint Beasts arc comes to an end. As Yusuke is on his way to school, Hiei runs into him and hands him a tape saying it's from Koenma, and then just fucks off. Back at Kuwabara's place, they find out that their mission is to rescue an ice apparition named Yukina. Kuwabara's horny kicks in as they make their way to the mountains. Tarukane, who has Yukina captive, has also hired the Toguro brothers to try and make Yukina cry and obtain jewels from her tears. Eventually, the brothers find out that killing the birds that come to visit her drives her to tears. Oh, and by the way, Yukina is Hiei's sister. Yeah. But other than that, we get to see just how powerful the younger Toguro is. Tarukane plans to use his power to cheat the members of the Black Club by betting on his fight with Kuwabara and Yusuke. Everyone bets on Tarukane's forces at first, other than Sakio, who continues to bet on Yusuke and Kuwabara. Fuck crypto, dump your money into Yu Hakusho gambling. When they enter the manor, they're greeted by Miyuki, who Yusuke literally proceeds to grope to check if they're a girl, and keeps hitting her in the But Yusuke reveals that Miyuki is actually a man in disguise. But Yusuke's hands are E for everyone regardless and makes quick work of him. The second guy is taken out pretty quickly by just one from Yusuke. The third member of the triad is taken out just as easily. The final bet is placed again by Sakio, which is over 66 trillion. Finally now, the clash begins with Yusuke and Kuwabara against the Toguro brothers. The older brother transforms into a sword as the other one powers up. Things seem dire right off the bat as the Toguros dominate the fight completely with their power, viciously beating Yusuke and Kuwabara relentlessly. During the whole showdown, Kuwabara is able to see just how twisted Tarukane really is, seeing Yukina's memories of her failed escape. Compared to the Saint Beast, this is as backed into a corner as Yusuke has been, not even being able to damage the opponent in front of him. However, thinking quickly as always, Yusuke fires a spirit gun and propels Kuwabara forward faster than Toguro can counter, finishing him off. Just as Tarukane tries to escape, Hiei arrives and mercilessly beats him, but Yukina stops him, even though she doesn't recognize who he is. After this, Yukina and Kuwabara share a deep moment where he tells her not to hate humans, with her reassuring him that there is no need to worry. And with that, the Spirit Detective Saga comes to a close. This small saga, even in 25 episodes, is in my opinion a very strong opening to the series, filled with lots of great action and even better character introductions. It's no small feat to be able to handle all this development in such a small frame of time, even though there is a ton more to come. But the main four have had such good moments in these tiny story arcs. On this rewatch, I think I really recognized just how much heart Yu Yu Hakusho has in it, more than just some action anime. Of course, I thought it was a great show the first time around, but now I just see how much more it has to offer. If you asked me when I first watched it, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you who was my favorite out of the main four. I appreciated them all greatly because of how cool I thought they were, and what they brought to the table. To be honest though, now I think it would still be the same answer, but I find myself being drawn more to them for what emotional aspects they represent as well. Loyalty, friendship, compassion, and the room to adapt and learn change and accept it. These aspects are found in each character, and it's something I believe we should all hold close. But I mean, they're still badass as fuck at the end of the day. Either way, you guys, I can't wait to cover the Dark Tournament arc. Things really ramp up even more there, with a ton more action and even more themes. So thank you for watching, and I appreciate all the support. If you guys have any thoughts on anything about the series, don't hesitate to talk about it in the comments below. And with that, I'll see you guys all next time. Maniac out. Peace.